The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Saint Matthew. At that time, Herod the Tetrarch heard about the fame of Jesus, and he said to his servants, "This is John the Baptist. He has been raised from the dead. That is why these powers are at work in him." For Herod had seized John and bound him and put him in prison for the sake of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, because John said to him, "It is not lawful for you to have her." And though he wanted to put him to death, he feared the people, because they held him to be a prophet. But when Herod's birthday came, the daughter of Herodias danced before the company and pleased Herod, so that he promised with an oath to give her whatever she might ask. Prompted by her mother, she said, "Give me the head of John the Baptist here on a platter." And the king was sorry, but because of his oaths and his guests, he commanded it to be given. He sent and had John beheaded in the prison, and his head was brought on a platter and given to the girl, and she brought it to her mother. And his disciples came and took the body and buried it. And they went and told Jesus. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Jesus. My dear brothers and sisters in Christ Jesus, a dead conscience can never recognize the presence of the Lord. A dead conscience can never recognize the presence of the Lord. It can never recognize the truth. And that is what we see with Herod today. He had killed his conscience. That is why he could neither recognize the voice of truth. That is John the Baptist. John the Baptist was the voice of truth. He himself says, "I am that voice that cries in the wilderness, prepare the way for the Lord." And he could not recognize that voice of truth when it spoke to him. It is not good for you to have your brother's wife. You're doing something that is against truth, that is against the presence of God. And he could not recognize that, and he put an end to that voice. And now he is before truth himself. If he is not able to recognize the voice of truth, that is John the Baptist, will he be able to recognize the truth himself? He will never be able to recognize the presence of Christ as well. That is what will happen to anyone who kills their conscience. A dead conscience can never recognize that voice of God. And when we kill our conscience, when we constantly become insensitive to sin, I become insensitive to sin and start justifying my actions. Very often when we get into that justification, who doesn't do it? It is not that bad. So when we have these kind of justification for our actions, for our words and thoughts, that is when we slowly kill that inner voice that guides us. This is right, this is wrong. And when we kill that inner voice, that conscience within us, we will not be able to recognize the Lord even if he is before us. That is why today Herod says, it might be John the Baptist, but then I put an end to him. Who is this then? He is not able to see that mighty presence of Christ. The sinners could see it because their conscience was still alive. The Samaritan woman at the well, when Jesus spoke, her conscience spoke to her. And she went and told the others, I have seen the Messiah. She was able to recognize the presence of the Lord. That woman, who seems to be a sinner, runs and says, I've recognized the Lord. I've seen the Messiah. Zacchaeus, when Jesus went to the house, he could recognize. These were all categorized as sinners. But then they were sensitive to sin. They were sensitive to the voice that was speaking to them, to their conscience. That is why they were able to recognize the Lord even in their sinfulness. Even in their sinfulness, they were able to recognize the voice of Jesus, the presence of God that was in search of them. But here we have Herod, who is not able to recognize that voice at all. And today, as we read this gospel, the Lord is once again asking us to sharpen our conscience, to sharpen that inner voice that guides us. In order to do that, we need to be sensitive towards our actions, our words and thoughts. Only when we become sensitive to our action, to our words and deeds, will we be able to have a conscience that guides us in the right way. A conscience that will help us to recognize the hand of God guiding all of us. During this Mass, we will pray for that grace.